Good evening, I'm Bilgute Tumendimbril with Today. We broadcast news and interviews every Tuesday, Thursday and Saturday in English. On Saturday's edition, we always have guest time. As Mongolia celebrates the 45th year anniversary of diplomatic relations with Australia, in the scope of the anniversary, we have a very special guest today here in studio. Let me introduce Mr. John Langtree, the Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of Australia. Good evening, sir. Thank you for receiving our invitation.
Well, it's a great pleasure to be on the show. This is my first time on Today, so thank you very much for the introduction, Bilgute.
Well, thank you. So let's start talking about general Mongolia and Australia, the diplomatic relations. It's established in 1972, right? So which means 45th anniversary. So what are our main fields of our relationship?
Well, we've achieved a lot in 45 years. And so, although we have a new embassy, we have a very good foundation to build on. And I think that's because Mongolians and Australians naturally get on very well because we both like wide open spaces, blue skies, and we both have very welcoming and inclusive societies. But there's a lot else to talk about as well.
So what are the main areas of our relations?
Well, what we're building on is a very strong economic partnership. Obviously, Australia is big in mining in Mongolia, and that's because we do many of the same things in developing mines for export with foreign investment. And as well as that, we have a huge education relationship. And I think everybody knows about the Australia Awards, but there's a lot more to it as well.
So throughout all these years, 45 years, what have we achieved together?
Well, we've achieved a very good people-to-people relationship. We have the educational partnership and also a very strong economic partnership. So I guess the real question is, what's new with a new embassy? And the things I'd like to emphasize, the opportunities I'd like to emphasize are strengthening the education relationship, doing more together internationally.
Internationally together.
Yes, and also we would like to strengthen the economic partnership as well. Like to see a lot more investment above and beyond the strong relationship we have with, for example, Rio Tinto's investment in Oyu Tolgoi. And it's a good opportunity for us as an embassy to develop new cultural and public information programs.
Right. So let's talk about Australian aid program and its objectives. What is the budget of this year's official development assistance?
Well, we have a number of programs running, but the bilateral program is worth about $10 million a year. And it focuses on good world's best practice in mining and also very strongly on tertiary scholarships. Tertiary scholarships. So that's what's best known about that is the Australia Awards.
Right. People could mix up the Australian aid program with the direct aid program. So give us the difference. What's the difference between them?
I'm glad you asked that question because, in fact, there are a number of other projects, programs beyond the $10 million a year bilateral program. So, for instance, we work with international organisations and through the Australian Volunteers for International Development on a range of public health, public safety, early childhood education, environmental programs. We also have the program you've just referred to, the Direct Aid Program. We call it DAP for short, DAP. And that's a program that I run directly out of my embassy here. It's worth about $240 million a year, and it's smaller programs in the same sort of areas, aimed at sustainable social and economic development. I'd be happy to talk a bit more about the details of those in a minute. But there are a couple of other things we do as well. For example, we have a women's leadership program, which builds on the Australia Awards, and as part of that, there are a number of small projects that we run. And also Australia's alumni, the Mozzies and other alumni are also involved in some small projects too. So there are a whole range of things that we can do with a whole range of partners in Mongolia.
So yeah, I want to emphasize on that direct aid program. Who could participate in the program?
Well, we invite invitations twice a year from basically social organisations, NGOs and the likes, but it could be schools, it could be government organisations and so forth. And generally the areas we look at are empowerment of women, gender-based violence, public health programs, environmental programs, and in some cases we work with universities on technical programs.
As you mentioned, Australia, well, as you mentioned, and people know, Australia is very popular in educational projects and scholarships. And AAP, Australian Awards Program, right? So, so far, how many Mongolians have participated in the program?
Well, it's about 500 who've been in the program, and about 70 there at the moment completing degrees, so that we over 430 graduates back here making big contributions to Mongolian society, Mongolian economic life, and also to government and civil society.
So about the Australian Awards Program, what's the objectives? What's the focus, specifically in Mongolia? Is it mining or what areas?
Well, perhaps we should have a bit of a talk about the history of the program.
Yeah.
Because it was originally started in 1994.
1994, okay.
Yeah, and that's, of course, when Mongolia made its choice to develop democracy and a market economy. And, well, we already had diplomatic relations. I think people in Canberra looked at this decision by Mongolia and said, well, how can we help? So the program over the years has focused on helping Mongolia to develop civil society, institutions of democracy, and the structures and capability to manage a market economy. And we're still doing it today.
So lately Australia has been very popular for the youths to go there, students to go there and study. In your study, does it show the increase of number of people who are studying there?
Well, you've raised a good question because there's another very interesting side to the education relationship beyond the Australia Awards. And that is that increasing numbers of Mongolians are funding themselves to go and study in Australia. And just last year, for example, there was a 40% increase in the numbers. 40% in the numbers? That's a huge amount of increase. And one of the most popular events that we run every year with the Australian Trade Commission and the Embassy is the Australia Future Unlimited Education Exhibition. It's every year in September.
Every year in September, okay.
And we probably had 2,300 people through the doors genuinely interested in going to Australia last year. Once again, a big increase. And it'll be on again in September. And so anyone who's interested in going to study in Australia should, well, I ask you, come and see the exhibition and come and study in Australia.
I'm wondering, why do you think the reason is of the increase? I mean,
well, word gets round in Mongolia. We've already had a lot of students through, and they've enjoyed the experience. And often they've had their families with them. It's a good quality education, but also I think
maybe the
Mongolians just like living in Australia, and they come back and they never forget us, and they tell their friends.
Right, that must be it. So, in the frame of celebrating 45th anniversary, on the cultural aspect, what are the plans? What are you guys planning from the Embassy?
Well, the anniversary date itself is 15th of September, but we started early. This is a full year event for us. So we've done a few things already, and we're planning a whole lot more. We, as an embassy, celebrated publicly Australia Day for the first time in January. We had a big reception with about 300 people there, and we had a beach party. Why wouldn't you? It's summer in Australia.
Beach party.
A beach party.
Where was
in
it
the
held
Tushin.
again?
In the
Tushin. Wow,
Hotel.
that's interesting. I never thought about it.
And we have to thank them. They were very patient, and they allowed us to build the beach.
Okay, that's very interesting.
But I think Australians and Mongolians like to enjoy public events, and so that was very successful.
And the open space, especially, right?
Yeah. And it was a good way to start off the year. But since then, We've been looking at a number of other events. I think in particular we're going to do our first big public event outdoors.
Outdoors, okay.
And this will be a jazz concert and food festival involving a well-known Australian jazz band, the Syncopators, and the wonderful jazz performers you have in Mongolia.
So what's the name of the band again?
The Syncopators.
Syncopators. Okay, I'll look into that.
They're well known internationally, and we'll be doing this with the cooperation of the Shangri-La and a whole lot of other sponsors, including the Ministry for Foreign Relations, as an outdoor event in the courtyard.
Yeah, that's interesting, especially outdoor event.
Yeah.
When is it going to happen? The date? Has it
Remember the date? It's going to be on Saturday, the 20th of May, from the afternoon until the evening.
See, okay, you got to come out.
And you don't need an invitation.
I know
Just come
invitation.
along. You don't need an
It's
invitation.
open for everyone.
Open for everybody.
Right. Very nice, very nice. So, well, enough about the official talk. Let's talk about Mr. Langtree, not the ambassador. What's your hobby?
Well, I have a couple of hobbies. Summer is wonderful, so I do land sailing.
Land sailing. Well, you need to emphasize on that because not so many people heard about it. In Mongolia, not so many people heard about it. What's land sailing?
Well, it involves a cart with wheels and a sail, a bit like a windsurfer sail.
Sail,
And it allows you, when the wind's in the right direction, to just have a wonderful time sailing on wheels across the Mongolian steppe.
So using wind.
Using wind.
And
no
you're on
motor,
a cart. No motor.
No motor, no brakes.
No brakes? How would you stop that if wind doesn't stop?
You turn into the wind.
Okay.
I'll take you one day.
Okay, well, have you got some pictures?
Well, we can post them after. You can have a look actually at my Facebook page. My Facebook page actually has a photograph of me trying to sail uphill.
Okay, well, if that's possible, I will get some pictures and
sure.
show it to the people what it is exactly. So, well, that you do on summertime, right?
Yeah.
What do you do in wintertime?
In wintertime, I've had since I was a child a hobby of model train.
Model train,
Modelling with model trains, small-scale electric trains. They drive around track, and you can make model villages, dioramas, and things like that. And it's a good way for busy people to depressurize and think about using their hand rather than using their head.
It takes lots of concentration, doesn't it?
Yeah, but it's a nice way to relax on those long winter evenings.
Yeah. So you make it, it's a handcraft, right?
It's a handcraft.
You make the train and it goes on the...
Goes on the track and you can build model villages and scenery, and you can build your own miniature world with a miniature train that travels through it.
Right. Do you have special room for your trains?
Not a special room. I have a small layout that I brought with me from Australia, which is upstairs in my home, and I try and spend what time I can on it in winter.
Right. So, is it possible to show pictures of that room to our audience?
I would like to do that if I had made more progress in putting with the hobby over the last winter, but being my first year in Mongolia, I think it's probably not ready to show people. Maybe next year.
Okay, next year.
Maybe next year. Next winter.
Yeah, next winter. So, okay, my last question is about books. This is like regular question for our guests. What book are you reading, or what book are you into?
The book I'm reading at the moment is called The Silk Roads, A New History of the World, and it's by an author by the name of Peter Frankopan. And I'm reading it because it takes a look at history the way it is never taught in Europe or Australia. Generally never taught to English speakers. About everything that is between China, Mongolia, and where the Greek and Roman empires ended over many, many centuries. And it's just been fascinating for me to come to Mongolia and start looking at this whole new area of history that I hadn't known about. And it's also teaching me a lot about Mongolian history, and of course
And the culture.
Genghis Khan
Genghis Khan, right.
has a big part in it, and so that's fascinating for me as well.
And there's Kublai Khan as well.
Kublai Khan, all the Huns,
All the Hans in there.
yes, and how they interacted with the other empires, and indeed how Mongolia was so successful in building what was perhaps the biggest empire the world has ever seen.
Right, right. Very interesting. So you're into history, or what's the genre you mostly take on? The book genre?
If you're into history, if you're a diplomat, you have to be into history.
Yeah. Right.
Because one would hope to learn from history how to avoid war, how to build a better society, and so forth. I'm interested in war histories.
War
I have
histories,
been. That's because my father was a soldier.
Soldier, really?
And he encouraged me to be a diplomat because he thought that it was better to prevent war than to wage it.
Because he experienced it.
He experienced it.
He's got experience in
He
the
was
war.
in the generation that fought in the Pacific War, and also he fought in the Korean War. So.
Oh, right. That's why he wanted to prevent it. And you're the...
He thought that I should be involved in trying to prevent war rather than being involved in it the way he had been.
Wow, very interesting. So your hometown. Tell us about your hometown.
I always get asked this question, and my answer is that because my father was in the army, we moved a lot, and I don't really have a hometown. And being a diplomat as well, you travel a lot. I guess though my ministry is in Canberra, the capital city of Australia, so that has become my hometown later in my life.
Later in your life. So you've basically become international person. Well, you go around, right? So thank you. Thank you, sir. Unfortunately, we have limited time, and if we talk, we could talk more and more. But thank you for your very interesting takes, and I want to leave the last minute to you. And if there's anything you want to add, anything you want to say to our audience.
I'd like to say to the audience, as Australia's first resident ambassador, how lucky can you be? This is a wonderful country, and Australia and Mongolia have so much in common. I know there's a lot we can do together. And I'd like to invite all of the audience out there to help us celebrate 45 years and to look forward to another good 45 years. Thank you very much.
Very interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that's all for the interview. Now we want to show you world weather forecast. That's all for today. Thank you for being with us. You're watching MM Today. See you on next Tuesday with more news. You have a good one. Bye-bye.